Alright, so this is a video that's been a little while in the making, me think. I want to talk to you guys about stocks and shares, investing in stocks and shares, because I think I said this in a previous video, but if I haven't, I'm going to say it now. The games that rich people play with their money is the exact same games that poor people can play with their money, we're just going to do it on a much lower scale. So here's the thing, I'm not talking about any kind of get rich quick scheme. I'm not talking about, making the big bucks and things like that. I'm gonna keep it real with you. We're not talking a lot of money. It's not gonna be life-changing money. It's not gonna be quit your job money or anything like that. And it is a long-term investment. I mean, I'm talking 10 years minimum, 10, 20, 30 years, 40 years maybe. This is long-term investment. And at the end of it, it's not gonna be the big bucks and all that kind of stuff. It'd be something, and it'd be more than what you would have had you not done it, hopefully. So here's the thing, when talking about stocks and shares and things of that nature, you have to understand that there are elements of risk involved. It is possible that you could end up with less money than you invested in. It is possible you could even lose all your money. And because of that, it's very important, it's crucially important that you never, ever, under no circumstances, invest more money than you could afford. Never. The moment you start investing more than you could afford, you are no longer investing, you are gambling. All right, so never go more than you could afford. Now, how do you work out what you could afford? Well, that's the easy part. So when you get your pay each month or each week or however frequently you get it, you deduct all your bills that you need to pay. So that's your rent or your mortgage, your food bills, your electricity bills, your gas bill, all of that, all your utility bills, all of that. Then you need to deduct any other costs you have. Like if you got kids, make sure you got money put aside for that. If you're looking after your elderly parents, make sure you got money put aside for that. So take care of all the things you're responsible for. Make sure you're putting the money aside away for that. Make sure you're putting away money for your fun activities as well, because that's important too. Put a little aside to have a little fun with. Just because you're poor doesn't mean you gotta have a boring life. You can have a little fun too. So put a little money aside for that, and make sure you're putting money aside for your pensions and your savings accounts, because in my opinion, and granted, I'm not claiming to be any kind of financial expert, but in my opinion, savings accounts and pensions are the two best ways you can save money for the future when you don't have a lot of money. They are probably, for the most part, the safest ways, and I've got to do the air quotes because they can go up and down too. Banks can go out of business too. Pension companies can go out of business too. But when it happens, you typically have insurances, in particular the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority, which means that your money is insured up to £85,000. But to be clear, there's always, no matter what you do, going to be some elements of risk. All right, so now that you've taken care of your bills, you put money aside for this, you got money in your savings, you're taking care of your kids, you've done all the things you need to do, the money you have left over, that's what you could afford. And then you take the money you could afford and then half it. And that's what we're going to use to invest. Now, in terms of which companies to invest in, that of course is entirely up to you. However, you might want to consider companies that have already been around for a very long time. And I'm talking like 30 years, 40 years, 50, 100 years. Companies that have shown that they can survive through various changes and technological advancements. So you're looking at banks or energy companies, things like that. You can of course go with any company you want to. I'm just saying, to keep this as safe as possible, look for companies that have shown they have staying power. Remember, this is about long-term investment. The other thing you want to look for is their dividend yield, and that's expressed as a percentage of how much they pay per share per year. Now, most companies that have been around for a long time like that would pay dividends, but not all companies pay dividends, so you want to make sure that they do. There are good reasons to invest in companies that don't pay dividends, but for now, we want to keep this as safe as possible. So look for companies that pay dividends. Now, the dividend yield is something that can change throughout the year. Sometimes it's going to be low, sometimes it's going to be high. Generally speaking, the higher, the better. But once it starts getting into the, say, 9%, 10% area, it could possibly mean that something isn't going as well as it should be. It doesn't definitely mean that something isn't going as well as it should be, but it could possibly mean that. So you may want to check a few things just to be sure that things are still okay. That said, if you are sticking with companies that have been around for a long time, that have shown that they know what they're doing throughout various situations over a long period of time, And for the most part, you don't really need to think too much about it. Just let them do what they're doing. Now let's talk about actual investing now, because like if you go on YouTube and you watch some videos about investing, you're going to hear things like, you know, just £5 a day and you could invest in this company, or just £20 a day and you can invest in this company, or just £100 a week and you can invest in this company, or whatever it is. And that's all well and good. But the problem is that a lot of us don't have that kind of money. You know what I mean? Like £5 a day. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying, like, you might have to give up a few chocolate bars. And like I said before, we still gotta have our fun. You know what I mean? We still gotta have our fun. So what happens if at the end of all your bills and everything else you're responsible for, you've put money aside into your savings account, you put money aside for some fun stuff, and at the end of it all, you're left with £2. And then we're gonna half that, so now you just got £1. All you have is £1. Is it still worth investing £1 in a company over the next 10 years, 20 years or more? Short answer, yes. Now I'm gonna try and explain why. So this is a dividend calculator site. So it basically calculates how much dividends you'll be earning per year after however many years of your investment. Now, it is an American site, so you're gonna see dollars and things like that around. Ignore that for now. It's the same principle. And also remember, things go up, things go down. So the numbers here aren't necessarily going to be exactly what you would see if you were to do this, but hopefully this gives you a general kind of ballpark-ish figure, sorta. So let's say you invest in a company, doesn't matter which one. Well, I mean, it does matter which one, but for now it doesn't matter which one. I've got HSBC in there because you've got to put something in here. You don't have to invest in HSBC. If you think they're a good investment, go for it. If not, that's cool too. But just for the sake of showing you stuff, I just put this here. All right, so here's what we're gonna do now. HSBC share prices are currently £8 and something pence. So yeah, £8.47. They're probably not that exactly, but it doesn't really matter. It's fine, because again, prices go up and down. That's a good kind of ballpark average for now. Let's say your annual contribution is £12 per year, because you just £1 per month, that's all you can afford. £12 per year, right? A lot of this stuff we could ignore for now. Like I say, it's not going to be an exact accurate figure anyway, but we're going to come over here. We're going to say the dividend yield is 3%, because again, it goes up and down, but that's probably about a decent average-ish, give or take. We're going to invest over 10 years, right? Now, I skipped a bit. I'm going to come back to that in a second, but hit the calculator. In fact, let me go back to it because it's probably best to show you now. So this bit here is called DRIP, which stands for Dividend Reinvestment Plan. Now, let me put no for a second and just recalculate this. So what that means is when you get your dividends each year, if you don't reinvest them, you just take them out and, you know, put them in your bank or whatever. Now, in the beginning, your dividends are going to be pennies if you're lucky. Like if even that much, you'll be pennies per year, right? I ain't gonna lie to you, it would be pennies in the beginning, okay? But you can take that out, and anytime you get a dividend, whether they send it to you quarterly or yearly or however they do it, you can take it out, put it in your bank, do what you want with it, it's all good. That's if you don't reinvest it. Now, if you don't reinvest it and you just put £12 per year, you could have an annual dividend payout of £4. Let's say, ignore the dollars for a second, £4 and 13 pence. Now, you might be thinking, wait a minute, I'm going to invest for 10 years and all I'm going to get is £4 and 13 pence per year. What is the point of that? You're probably thinking that. You might be thinking that. I was thinking that. But here's the point. It's more than what you would have had. Like, think about it. That money that you have, that £1, that after you paid all your bills, after you did everything you wanted to do, you had your fun, you saved some money, you did all the things you needed to do, and you had £2 at the end of it, and you only put £1 into this. So that pound wasn't going anywhere anyway, right? But if you put it into this, by the end of it, you could have £4 and 13 pence after 10 years. But here's the thing. What if you did reinvest your dividends? So rather than taking out your dividends each year, your pennies, right? Rather than taking that, what if you just put that back in to buy more shares? That's what the DRIP stands for, Dividend Reinvestment Plan. It means the dividends that you would have got, rather than taking it out and spending it, you can use that to automatically buy new shares, right? And again, it's not gonna be a lot in the beginning, it's gonna be pennies, but over a period of time, it all adds up. So rather than taking it out after 10 years, now you can have a little bit more, £4 and 65 pence. And now you're probably thinking, what's the point of that? After all that, it's more than what you would have had. The other thing I want to draw your attention to as well, in case you haven't noticed, is this bit over here where it says ending balance. £154.87. And what that means is that if you wanted to, you can sell all your shares and you will get about 150 quid back. Now, for those of you who want to do a little math, you invested £12 per year, right? You didn't take any of your dividends out. You just put £12 from your pocket into this per year, £1 per month. After 10 years, that is £120. That means you do this and you now have £30 or £34 more than what you would have had if you cashed out. Or you can just take £4.65 and enjoy that. The point is, you do something like this and it's more than what you would have had. Yes, it's not quit your job money. Yes, it's not the big bucks. It's not a get rich quick scheme. It's not going to solve every single one of your financial problems, if indeed you have financial problems. But it's a little money that you're not doing anything else with that can hopefully turn into £4.65 a year after 10 years or £154 if you decide to cash out, right? And this is what I think you should do if you are, I mean, you could do this for yourself, but if you have young kids, here's something you might want to consider doing. Setting up an account in their name in the beginning and pay your £1 per month into it on their behalf every month until they're, 16 years old or whenever they start working. When they start working, they can then start paying £1 into it per month, and they could do that for the next, let's say, 15 years. Right? So you're talking about, 30 odd years, give or take, depending on how old your children are now when you start. But let's say 30 years. After 30 years of investment of £1 per month, they could have either 26 quid a month, 26 quid a year. Sorry, let me not overshoot it too much. £26 a year. Or if they wanted to, they can cash out and they got nearly £1,000. What if they went for 40 years? Now they could have about 50 quid a year. And if they want to cash that out, 1,600. Here's the thing. I went with £1 because I wanted to emphasize that this isn't just something that only rich people can do or only people with extra money and extra, could do. This is something literally most anybody can do. Most anybody. I mean, of course, there are going to be some exceptions. I know. I'm not unaware of that. I'm just saying most people could afford £1 per month. Right? But also, a lot of you could afford more than £1 per month. Some of you could afford £5 per month. So what's £5 over the year? That's 60. Well, if you was to invest £5 a month, £60 a year over 30 years, over 40 years, £248 a month. I said it again, £248 a year. Or you can cash out at 8,000. But let's bring it back. What if you don't want to wait 40 years? What if you want to do it yourself and you want to retire soon? All right, let's go for 10 years. £60 a year. And after 10 years, you could have 23 quid a year, or you can cash out and have £774. Now, again, these aren't exact figures. Money can go up, money can go down. Dividend yields go up, dividend yields go down. Price shares go up, price shares go down. All kinds of things go up and down. So these aren't going to be exact figures that you might experience if you were to do this. It may be higher, it may be lower. Hopefully it's higher, but it could be lower. And you should know that. And again, it is possible that even companies that have been around for a long time can go belly up. It's happened. So it's very important that you never, ever, under no circumstances, invest more than you could afford. Because the money that you invest needs to be money that you're not doing anything else with. If you need it to pay bills, pay your bills. If you need it for something else, do something else. But the money that you're not doing anything else with, the money that you have after everything is done, that's what you use to invest. So pay your bills, take care of your kids, take care of anybody else you need to take care of, take care of any responsibilities you have, put a little money aside for having fun with, put a little money into your savings accounts, put some money into your pensions, do all of that. And what you have left, money that you're not doing anything else with. It doesn't have to be the big bucks. Of course, the more you put in there, the more you could potentially gain. But it has to be no more than you could afford. That is so important. No more than you can afford. Don't worry if your next door neighbor could afford 3 times as much as you, or that guy on the internet says, oh, well, if you can't afford £20 a day, then what you can do. Because it's not about, becoming a millionaire and having all this fancy stuff and living large and in charge. It's just doing something that puts you in a better position 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30, 40 years from now. That's what it's about, long-term investments. Yeah. I think just one last thing to say for now is that when it comes to actually buying the shares, there's lots of ways you can do that. There's a lot of trading platforms that exist right now that make it a whole lot easier to buy shares. Of course, you can still just go through the companies directly and do it that way. I'm a bit reluctant to say which platform I'm using because I don't want it to sound like an endorsement. Use whichever one you feel is best for you. Definitely do your research into things like fees and stuff like that, like what they charge, because of course that can have an effect on how much you can invest and of course how much you can get back. Definitely do your research into the companies that you want to invest in. Make sure you're happy with not just what they pay out on their dividends, but also that you're happy with them from a moral point of view too, because some companies be doing some dodgy things. But in the end, the single most important thing is never invest more than you could afford. Your money could go up, your money could go down, your money could go gone. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Hopefully it's a good enough explanation of how to get started in investing. For now, peace.